Pockets to toys. Sure. No, I'm not going to moderate. I'm just going to announce and then they're going to come up. Well, as they're setting up, I'm Jason Babler, Creative Director at Make Magazine. We love toys, and toys are evolving in a way that it's kind of like hiding the medicine in the applesauce for kids. Toys are becoming so interactive and so educational, but not obviously so, and I think that's what's amazing. We thought it was so amazing that our current issue is the best toys for makers. We kind of broke it down by Steam so that you can kind of aggregate. There's also great guide in here about if your daughter is interested in toys and in learning. There's actually a great flow chart of what to actually give them instead of the obvious things that we kind of probably all grew up with as kids. And we got some great stuff in here. Two of our presenters actually wrote some articles in here. Alice talks about how to get your toy made if you're a maker. Some great obvious stuff, or not so obvious things to think about. I think they're going to be ready, so I'm going to introduce them one at a time. Alice Taylor, well, if she's ready back there, come on out. She's getting her mic on. Well, she's the CEO of Makeylab, which is this London startup that prints these customized dolls and characters called Makeys, and they're really, really cool. And as soon as she comes out here, you guys can applaud for her. She's coming. I can hear it. It's going to be grand. Alice, everybody.
Hello. Ooh, sorry.
Wow. That's your Makey.
That's my Makey.
All right. Who do we have next? I've got Kenny Davis, Senior Director, Global Marketing at Hasbro, one of the biggest makers of toys. Klaus Moberg, co-founder and CEO of Snowshoe. They make these really cool physical stamps that you can actually put onto the screen of your smart device. It's pretty cool. Fellow Wisconsinite, so he's a good guy. Last but not least, Wayne Losey. He's a veteran toy maker. He's also the CEO of Madio. It's kind of this new app. CCO. Sorry. Oh gosh, I got it back. New app that enables users to design, customize, and 3D print their own unique posable characters. And you probably saw it last night at the Innovation Showcase. So take it away. Thank you, everybody.
Alrighty. Hi, everybody. So, toys and toy making and MakerTech, we're pretty much all involved in the toy industry in some capacity. Or
trying to be.
Or trying to be, exactly. So we were just going to have a kind of conversational panel where we talk about what we do and how it got started and the MakerTech that we're using and stuff like that. And we've also got a very special guest here in the form of Kenny from Hasbro. And he's also going to be talking about MakerTech and what they're doing in it. So we're going to have the full spectrum from large toy company through to tiny toy company, and we'll go from there. And what we'll try and do is keep this conversational, so we'll just kind of flow through, and you guys should ask questions as much as I'm going to. And then we're going to try and get you guys involved at the end, so we'll try and keep 10 minutes for questions at the end and stuff like that. So with no further ado, we'll introduce ourselves and what we do, and then kind of take it from there. So I'm Alice. I started a company called Makeylab just about 3 years ago, and we wanted to make dolls from avatars. We wanted to make virtual goods that would make physical goods, so 3D printed dolls in short. And they're called Makeys, and this is one of them here. And what you do is you go onto the web, or now any mobile device via an app or a browser or whatever, because we're in WebGL finally, and you can make a Makey, which involves changing the face, eye sliders, etc. So each one's completely unique. This is a little 3D printed test tube set. They come with little lab coats. We actually 2D print all of the clothes as well, so all of the patterns we make, but we also have user-generated ones. These little boots were printed on MakerBot, and this often freaks people out, but you're just going to have to live with it. We also make sure that the heads are hollow so that you can stuff it full of electronics. And it used to actually be exactly sized to fit a LilyPad Arduino, but with everything shrinking, We actually shrunk the head a bit as well, and we actually took out the hole where you could put wires through to the battery pack at the back because ditto. But now you can have like back pieces that have like Lego connectors and stuff like that. So we wanted kids to, if they wanted to not only create the doll in the first place, but also hack and mod it because it's cool, and that's how you learn. So that's Makeys and Makeylab, and you can have a look at it at mymakey.com. And with that, I will hand over to Kenny. What do you do?
What do? I just enable other people to do stuff. So I'm running the 3D printing business for Hasbro, and I was hired by Hasbro to launch new brands about 4 years ago. The first one that I did for Hasbro was Furby, which was sort of an artificial intelligence robot. We brought Furby back, and it was it did pretty well at sort of moving that ball forward. But my whole history has been sort of company to company, launching new brands. What I'm doing now is as much helping Hasbro get into 3D printing space as helping us to work with the community that's already blazed the trail out there, and help us to figure out what it is that makes how we can make play even more fun with all of these new technologies. So from a sort of talking to business people perspective, I always say, I run the 3D printing business, which is what says in various press releases. But actually what I'm doing is helping Hasbro figure out how to move from mass production to things that are customized and personal.
Claus Moberg, CEO of Snowshoe. I think we actually have a clip that I may describe what we do better than I can personally. Awesome. So we make magical little pieces of plastic. They have
sufficiently advanced technology.
Yeah. They have no battery, no power, no circuitry, no antenna, no radio, no moving parts. Yet each one can be uniquely identified when it's touched to the screen of a smartphone, tablet, trackpad of your MacBook, anything that's a multi-touch surface. Basically, they're made out of a mix of conductive and non-conductive plastic and a dual extruding 3D printer, such that when you touch them to the phone screen, the phone thinks it's seeing a certain number of human fingertips in a very precise configuration. You can think of them as a 3D physical QR code in a way. But what that means is that we can make a really inexpensive, really durable, really secure piece of plastic that represents a digital asset. So I can make a toy, action figure, say, that when you touch it to the screen of your phone, that character teleports into a mobile video game. A whole bunch of other applications outside of that, though that's one we're really interested in given what Skylanders and Disney Infinity and stuff are doing in the console space. And we're an early stage startup currently participating in the Disney Accelerator in Burbank, California. And we're sort of early stage but growing.
Techstars as well.
Also came out of Techstars Boulder last summer, started the company in Madison, Wisconsin, where I dropped out of a PhD to do this.
As you do.
As all good tech founders do, I guess.
Because he has no commitment to his job.
Yeah, none whatsoever.
I am Wayne Losey. You guys have probably seen me up here somewhere at some point. Last year I was here with Mario at New York Maker Faire in the 3D printed area. I've been working on 3D printed toys for the last 3.5 years. First with Modibot, and then in January of this year I actually joined in founding a startup called Madio. Madio is an app that lets kids use a modular build system to kind of design, customize, and then 3D print their own characters. And it's very light, easy to use. My 4-year-old daughter can use it. And it's actually, it's built for desktop printing, so export is really easy. We don't print directly from the app, but we're working towards that. And that's it.
So we've all covered 3D printing. Do any of you use anything other? So MakerTech, right? One of the things about Maker Faire is I was at the San Mateo one as well, and I saw Kenny there as well, and he was like, I'm here with my team. And then they went off, and then the next thing we saw was the giant crowd from Mattel who were kind of sneaking by, not quite obviously actually. And I'm sure Disney, well, Disney is the big sponsor of this one here this year. So Maker Faire, I think, is a really fertile ground for toys and emerging kind of playful things. Obviously, we all work a lot with 3D printing, but a lot of the things that are coming up at the moment that we saw earlier was
It's a lot cooler than my piece of plastic.
It's a little bigger, yeah. But the combining, I think, the 3D printing with apps or other technology, it's kind of expensive, but it's definitely something that's happening more and faster. And actually, you know, Snowshoe is one of the more recent examples of this. The other thing that came up was this mention of accelerators. So one of the other kind of growing themes, I think, is the number of hardware-based and tech-based accelerators that are coming up. And you'll see toy companies are often some of the first to go through those programs. So you mentioned the Disney Accelerator, and I think there are at least 3 toy companies out of
Yeah, so
10,
in our
20.
program alone, there's Sphero, which makes the awesome little smartphone-controlled robotic ball, and they just launched Ollie, which is a smartphone-controlled robotic tube that does a lot of tricks. I mean, they sound stupid, they're amazing toys. And then there's Abuli, which is a plush that you insert an iPad into, and there's this amazingly interactive voice-activated app that the kid can interact with and basically brings the plush to life through a smartphone brain. You know, from the accelerator standpoint, for us, the Disney program is really just about gaining access to a big company. One of the things that we've noticed is that as a really early stage startup, it can be really hard to get companies that are doing, you know, many millions of dollars in revenue to take notice. There's often, a lot of times there's this, there can be a feeling of how can this 2 or 3 person startup be bringing us something that we couldn't develop internally. A lot of times there's a notion of, it may be interesting that they're doing it on that small scale, but it'll never go up to big scale. And for us to get the opportunity to work sort of inside a big company like Disney, sort of just allowed us to short circuit some of those conversations, or at least try to solve some of those problems collaboratively with them, as opposed to having to just outright convince them to do it.
So one of the things we're seeing here, I think this year, and increasingly every year, is big companies coming here.
Yeah.
So GE
and that's maybe indicative of the fact that it's changing too.
Yeah.
Right?
Like, I mean, I'm feeling that this idea that everything used to happen in-house is now, I mean, Hasbro is a really good example of a company that always worked with independent innovators and inventors, didn't it?
Not as much as we were trying to do now.
Oh, really?
It's a really big change.
There's a network, right?
Yeah, we've always had a network of inventors who've come in and they've supplied good ideas. And there was a time, this would have been the 20th century, when, you know, a great idea.
What?
I'll tell you about it.
Oh, Grandpa!
No, it was a great time. Back then, the inventors would come in, and if there was a really good idea, it could actually be marketed on its own. In the first 10 years of the 20th century, and especially with the consolidation of all the toy companies, everything had to fit within a brand. Right. So the inventors, and this was true of our company as well as the competitors, the brands ruled everything. So if you had a good idea as an inventor that fit with Elmo, then you could have Tickle Me Elmo. Or if you had a good idea.
And that's how it is today. Well, so like, I mean, say somebody wanted to pitch.
Well, we're trying to change it today. That's how it was yesterday.
Right.
Yeah. Today it's all different.
So what happens today?
So here's a couple of good examples, and I've been waiting for this moment to reveal. So just today we announced, which is why I'm dressed like a nerd and these guys are wearing shorts, that
That's cool.
Can you tell which one's in the big company? That we are. We've teamed up with 3D Plus Me, which is a company of just a few people, and we are doing a pilot program at Walmart where you can scan your head and put it on an action figure. And we take our 12-inch Titan action figures. I mean, low-hanging fruit. Everybody, if anybody hadn't thought about that idea yet, they're just no fun as people. Mm-hmm. Like, everybody wants to be Iron, I am Iron Man. But the technology wasn't there yet, and we weren't going to build it in-house. It would have taken us, forever. But what's changed in the world is that, because of, iPhones and Arduino and 3D printers and all of this other technology that you can literally have in a garage, a really smart person with a PhD or working on one can come up with something that we would never come up with. And so rather than simply acquire things and try to fit them into brands. We're reaching out and enabling some of the people who we think are going to be the game changers of the future.
And this stuff is going through Walmart now. I saw
in Walmart. Yeah,
right.
Absolutely.
I've seen things that Walmart are saying 3D printing, and they're kind of the CEO has been heard saying he's interested in it and wants to do stuff, but it feels like MakerTech now is right in there at the kind of totally mainstream level.
Yep.
Which is has literally happened in the past couple of years. So, but as a small company, what do you guys think about what it's like to be a small company in this thing where we're seeing people like Walmart turn up and the ability to technically get in there, but at the end of the day, there's money to be raised, there's technology to be bought. I'm guessing you all own printers. We own printers. There's all of that kind of stuff. Just as a bit of background quickly, we classically raised a bit of VC money and spent that. Did you guys do the same? No?
We've been self-funded so far.
Nice.
So,
Are you a millionaire?
Yeah.
Awesome.
Oh, no. Not now. No, but the thing is I came on after they had already done a certain amount of work on the app. So the app, when I was shown the app and we talked about actually coming together, it was a pretty stable thing, and there had already been a team of 3 people working on it for a while.
So tell us about the business model and how you make money, or how you make things, and how it's going to survive and stuff. Because
we make money.
Yeah, well, see, this comes up a lot as well, right? So
the thing is, we launched at Maker Faire San Mateo this year. We're just a small 5-man team, and the whole idea was that we actually soft launched. We knew that we needed to learn a lot about the technology, but we also needed to learn about the consumer side, because there's not a large install base of 3D printers. How many in this room actually own a 3D printer? See,
Okay,
even in a maker, centered area, look at the percentage. So, and you guys would be high target users. So, so when you think about it, your business model cannot be built upon this install base. But we had to start with the first steps, get the consumer insight, start building things, and then figure out how we were going to follow down the path, how we were going to circumvent it, how we were going to enable even more mass market consumers to interact with the tool we have, because the tool is great. And we can't let the tool, how great the tool is and how successful the tool is be determined by just the install base of 3D printers in the world right now.
Right.
It's not going to happen. So I guess we don't consider ourselves in beta anymore. But the business model in the future is that this fall we'll actually start charging. It's a free app. It's going to stay a free app, but this fall we'll start charging for premium kits. And then when you buy those kits, all those parts that you buy will just go into your library, and then you'll have access to all of them, every time you buy a new kit. So you'll be able to print them real big, print them.
You're selling the files or the printed pieces?
Well, it's the files. Right. When we export, it's a STL file. So if you haven't seen our app, you're actually able to go in and take most of these pieces and put your own personalized texture on them. You can sort of finger paint texture onto a lot of the pieces. So when you export them, you're a little more committed to this thing. It's a personalized action figure at that point, sort of like Kenny was talking about with the scanning, but in a creator sort of sense. So yeah, we export with all that texture on it, so the kids are really invested that it's their creation. So
is it mainly kids? I mean, you mentioned customers, consumers. What's the most interesting thing about the customer insight that we've all experienced? Because obviously, printed on demand, customized, new tech, activity, all of that kind of stuff is pretty new for a lot of people, and trying to get that message across to the.
There's not too many kids that own 3D printers, obviously, and there's very few kids that can run them, obviously. For you guys, understanding slicers and fixing your models, all that stuff. So, but if when you're here this weekend at Maker Faire, we will have lines of kids sitting there playing with both the pre-printed parts that are small, just like a Lego booth or whatever, or sitting there playing on the app. And we have a contest to, the 5 winners, we'll send them their the thing that they made in the mail.
So I think pretty much everyone who comes here is interested in making. But the folks at Walmart doing the print your own superhero, do they care that it's 3D printed? Do they have any interest in that, or is it just the fact that they can put their face on it? Like, what are you seeing that's interesting about the consumer reaction to this kind of stuff?
So my hypothesis was more what you were sort of hedging towards, which is that what's fun about this is that it's me.
Right.
Who cares how it became me? It's me. What is interesting to me is that for right now, and I don't think it will last, 3D printing is to today what moonrock was to the 60s. I can show somebody something, I can say, check out this water bottle, and they'll be like, that's nice. And you say, it's 3D printed, and they go, oh my God. And it's like, it just changed in front of their eyes into something really cool. But I don't think that's going to last. Like,
right.
2 years from now, they'll be like, yeah, that's nice.
Yeah, they'll be like, whatever. That's down on the Gartner hype cycle. I'm into the new stuff.
Exactly.
I think part of the goal, though, is I mean, for someone that works in 3D printing all the time, you want that to go away.
Yeah, well,
like I want the consumer to not be able to tell the difference.
Right,
but,
right.
They can nowadays, and it doesn't matter what level of printer you're getting it off of either.
That's
$1 million printer still.
I mean,
is 3D printed.
This is something that we struggle with a lot. I mean, there are things that are worth doing with our technology that are valuable initially because of the gimmick factor.
Yeah.
But that's not really stuff that we're interested in. We're interested in stuff where like the functionality of our technology enables game mechanics that can't be done elsewhere and that are inherently valuable, interesting, fun, engaging. And we've had opportunities to do stuff that's very gimmicky, both because it's 3D printed and because it's just like, oh, look, you can touch this to your screen and something happens. And we've shied away from doing that because, I mean, it doesn't lead to long-term generation of value. And when you're doing a startup and you have investors and employees who need to get paid, you sort of have to be focused on that.
Okay. So what's the most exciting thing you guys are seeing? So 3D printing, I think, was the most exciting thing 3 years ago. And 1 year before that, we were like, okay, we need to do stuff in 3D printing. But what's the most exciting thing you're seeing now? Is it still 3D printing, or is there like other stuff coming up that's A, specific to toys, and B, within the reach of makers who want to make toys here?
The really big theme that I'm seeing, and it's here. The other two companies that are in the Disney Accelerator with us that are in the toy space, it's finding ways to get kids who now are 95% just staring at this to 50% stare at this and the rest do something in the real world. I think we need to concede that staring at this is part of any future or something substantially like this, but then finding a way, whether it's controlling a robot ball or building a model that they can then print and play with in the real world, or owning things like that they can then interact back in the digital world, finding ways to blur the lines between this and the rest of the toys and entertainment that's out there.
As a point of note, toys are a kind of evergreen area, which is why I think it's pretty interesting to look at, if you have a business idea or whatever. Toys is a category that pretty much survives downturns and recessions. People always want to buy toys. The hilarious thing about the screen business is, I mean, we certainly hear it a lot, which is like, we want to get the kids off the tablet and back to playing with tangible things. So even though they're kind of blending and blurring together, at the same time, there's pretty much always going to be a need for physical things, right?
Mm-hmm.
Would you agree with that?
Totally.
Is there any reason not
Absolutely.
to? Yeah.
Yeah, I just think physical things will be delivered differently.
Right. What can you tell us about what's coming out, if anything? I'm aware that there's a lot of NDAs as well that flies around in Toyland, but are there any other interesting mechanisms about delivery or getting to the customer?
Well, let me answer. So obviously I can't tell you anything that hasn't been announced.
Sure,
but I think especially among us in the room, we're all looking for the future and going, how is this going to play out? And you mentioned the screen. I think we all intuitively know that the screen and stuff are going to keep blurring. What I think is what seems like some kind of weird hocus pocus that's coming our way will actually be very intuitive, which is just anything that you wish you could. Just imagine being a kid. Back when you were a kid, there were things you wished you could do, and the screen will enable those things. And every one of those things that you wished you could do that we can now do because of the screen will happen. And so a perfect example is, I've got a toy. I wish she had a different hair color. I wish she had bigger lips. And you'll use the screen to make your Makey doll have bigger lips and different hair. And when you cut her hair and you want new hair, you're going to go back to that screen and order more hair. Right. And it's it's very intuitive, and
that's a brilliant business model.
Somebody should do that. And the idea that and I see this with my wife too. She has this very distinct idea between screenplay and toy play. And here's her husband ruining it all for her. But I think that the toy play will involve, you pick up the screen to make the toy, then you start playing with the toy, then you want the toy to do something, so you remote control the toy, and the screen is, I think what is upsetting to people who didn't grow up with screens is the appearance of a child hunched over like a Neanderthal, buried in the screen, and they've somehow their eyes are vacant and they're gone. What I think the future is going to provide is a screen that helps us interact with the world, but there won't be the dichotomy between the real world and the screen.
Yeah, I think we've got about 10 minutes left. Should we open this up now? Is there any other bits you wanted to cover about toy making? I mean, the one bit that's sticking out for me is like, how do you get started? I think everybody here knows how to use the tech. But like, what would you do if you had an idea and you wanted to start a toy business? Where do you start? Like, for us, it was, in fact, we got a weird little government grant, but it was going straight out to pitch to money people because we didn't have enough money to get started, and luckily that worked. And then we did a minimum viable product and put it live, which was weird because it was ugly and horrible and expensive and not toy safe. But we got feedback and iterated on it. What would you say to people who wanted to get started now? Like, what's the best route to money? What's the best route to getting up and running?
So we raised our initial seed money to do something entirely different, invented this technology to solve a problem in that space, and then pivoted into the toy space. So we had essentially money that we had raised for something entirely different that we were now applying into this space. And frankly, I think this is a better story for us than what we were doing previously. Otherwise, I wouldn't have pivoted the company to do it. But I don't know how hard it would have been to raise money for this.
I think it would have been harder for you to raise money as a toy. I think I would agree with you. I think your pivot worked better.
So lie to people to start.
Actually, it's hard to get money for consumer products anyway.
Why is that?
Right?
Yeah, I agree.
Because I think that even an investor, even an angel investor, says there's a million systems for that. Like, why are you showing this to me?
Not only that, but
it's actually sort of not true for some of the things that Kenny said about how the paradigms used to be about even inventors showing to big companies.
Yeah, I mean, I would go farther with that. It all comes down to numbers, and especially when you're talking to investors, they have very clear categories in their heads. And the problem with toys from an investment standpoint is twofold. One is that it's incredibly high risk and high turn. So if a company like Hasbro will turn 80 to 90% of our SKUs every single year. So not only was it high risk.
What does that mean in English? That means you make new.
All new.
All new under the brand.
Look at what we're selling on Transformers this year, and then go look at what we sold last year. We had to reinvent the whole toy line. Yeah. And so not only does it have to hit when you first launch it, but there's no chance to fix it. Right. If you miss, it was all lost money. And then you look at the business as a whole, which they always do, and they go, well, it's a mature industry and it's not growing super fast. So you put those two things together and you plug it into charts with discount rates and so forth, and it says, well, I wouldn't invest that much. Whereas when you take a category like robotics, so you can choose to call your Sphero, you could choose to call Sphero a toy, or you could choose to call it a robot. If you call it a robot, well, that's something where the industry is going like this, so your multiple is going to be a lot higher, and your investors are going to be a lot more interested in investing in it.
There's one more aspect of it, I think, which on the investment side, which is if you're thinking about working with the big toy companies and you're a 3-person startup, you're probably not going to have any functional role to play in manufacturing the toy. Like, I'm not going to scale a 3D printing farm to make 1.5 million of these things for next year's Christmas season. That's just not rational. So it's Hasbro going to China to make these things, and that means really what we're doing is just getting a royalty, and Hasbro's goal in life is to make sure that royalty is as small as possible, as you should.
So where are you manufacturing at the moment?
oh, we're manufacturing ourselves in China, or in Wisconsin, excuse me, but same thing. Yeah, you know.
It's a small town in
Easy
Wisconsin.
to confuse.
But it's, you know, we're nowhere close. Right now we're making essentially developer kits that we're sending out to other people to build cool stuff on the technology. We're definitely not manufacturing anything close to like retail distribution scale. And nor do we plan to. I mean, our play is really more on the software that enables this technology to function and lets developers build this into their app and actually making these ourselves.
Right.
But what I was going to say is that when an investor looks at that and it's not you playing a functional role in the technology and it's not you controlling your sales cycle, you know, the success of that toy is dependent on your technology, but it's also dependent on Hasbro putting the right ad budget behind the toy. It's dependent on getting the right end caps in the right stores. It's dependent on all these other things that you as the startup don't control because it's not your front to back product. That's a really hard place for an investor to invest because they can't mitigate any of that risk.
There's no efficiency to that money.
Yeah.
Plus, I mean, as a startup, it's very difficult for you to play that scale of game anyway. Right. What I was going to say is that I really think there's a big part of the challenge, and I listened to the gentleman from Lemnos yesterday talking about, you know, right size of a business, and he made a lot of sense because it really is more about your profitability, how you want to live as an entrepreneur, and not just, you know, pointing to the sky and saying, I'm going to be as big as I could possibly be, because I think there's a portion of it is the higher you reach, the more leverage you're going to produce and the more risk and everything else. So like when I started Modibot, you know, it was totally self-funded. It was completely guerrilla, you know, but I built it over time. You know, it's still like an Etsy style business. You know, let's not try to make it bigger than it is. But the thing is like, when you don't risk a lot at the beginning, you can fail more easily. And I think that's, you know, sometimes it's much easier for someone that's already producing at a certain guerrilla scale to not risk everything and then grow into the role. Because toys is a tough business too. Even producing niche toys, what I'll say about the toy industry is there are toy makers of every level. There are toy makers that make $100,000 a year all the way up to Hasbro, you know, scale. So, and there's so many different ways to get into the business. So, I mean, it really is just picking where you want to be in the ecosystem and what is good for you as an entrepreneur, the scale.
Awesome. With that, let's go to questions. How long have we got left? Anybody? Oh, there you are. Okay, brilliant. Questions. Anybody? Kick it off.
What are we going to see on Shapeways from?
Yeah, sure. So I appreciate you asking. So Pete was here yesterday, and he was talking about the partnership.
Did you all hear the question? Do we need to repeat questions, or can you repeat the question?
So the question was about, you know, Hasbro's relationship with Shapeways. We launched Super Fan Art with Shapeways 13 weeks ago, and the concept there was to actually, I'll tell a quick story. I want to get to other questions, but a very quick story was. We had somewhat accidentally, it was a chain of letters that led to a cease and desist to somebody who was using our brands on Shapeways, and as soon as we realized, of course, what happened was everybody, saw a cease and desist, and they went and tried to buy the item, and Shapeways went, oh my God, we've got a hot one here. Oh, because we're trying to take it down. But we immediately went and said, no, that wasn't what we meant to do, and started conversations about, let's just turn this the other way. Let's give artists a license to create. And, creating super fan art it's like a 9-to-1 ratio of how much time I've spent with legal, with lawyers versus creatives. I'd like to flip that because I have more fun the other way. But, what it was all about was the people want to use their brands. Our brands. They've fallen in love with the characters, and so they want to use our brands. But what's really motivating is that they're creative people, so they want to create. They don't want to just replicate what we've done. And by creating super fan art, we gave a license to people to use our brands to create their own art, post it on Shapeways, and they can buy it for themselves, which is what a lot of people do, and they can also sell it to everybody else. And that's our partnership.
So do you guys take a cut when they sell it to other people? Is that how it works?
We do, and you know, we obviously we by running Superfan Art, we have our own expenses, and then we also have to pay. We're not the only ones who have royalties. You know, it doesn't all come into Hasbro. So what we do is we take a 35% cut of what the artist's profit is. So, you know, the artist has to pay some expenses to Shapeways. The rest, they can price it wherever they want. It's their shop. They can sell whatever they want, whatever price. We just take a 35% cut, and that goes to pay all of our expenses, a profit to Hasbro, and anyone else we have to pay.
But how true do they have to be to the brand? My Little Pony Zombie.
Right. How true do they have to be to the brand? So that's a great question. And
My Little Zombies
is
genius.
You know, for the most part, we have different specific, you know, limits for every brand. But what we're trying to do is make it easy for anybody to understand what the limits are. So sex, violence, and hate, we try not to, you know, allow that. And then we have some that are specific. So in My Little Pony, no saddles on a pony. But we're not there to evaluate what's cool and what's not cool, or whether you use the right Pantone of pink. You do whatever you want. Just don't, you know, sex, violence,
don't saddle that
saddles.
Don't saddle the ponies.
Don't saddle the ponies.
Any more questions? 2 minutes, 1 minute. Last question.
So about like adults in the toy industry space, I think that's something that wasn't there 25 years ago, right? How does that change how you market things? You might not just look.
You mean adult customers? Not,
Right.
Yeah, not makers.
Like you did My Little Pony.
Yeah, so the question is how has adults in the toy industry changed
Has that changed how you
things?
guys know that?
Yeah. You want to, I mean.
Yeah, should I feel that? I mean,
I would say, just quickly, I would say about 40% of our customers are adults.
I think
Totally
the one big aspect that comes in there is collectability.
Yeah.
And it's something that we're really interested in, just because the digital identity of a product can make it more exclusive. Sort of proving provenance through digital assets can make that collectible more exclusive. And so it's something we've really spent a lot of time looking at.
You've got adults. You must have.
Oh, we totally do,
Yeah,
so because of what I've said about running a printer. But you know, I think that's the thing is the older you get, the more prone you are to collecting.
Yeah.
So I think that's the natural progression, because you're making so many different iterations of Optimus Prime or, you know, one of the ponies or whatever. You know, people start affiliating towards the differences, and you know, it's connoisseurship is why adults are involved in it, right? Because they appreciate it and they love to know the difference and the mastery around it.
mm-hmm. I mean, there's no question that there's adults who love these. Yeah.
Is it making the whole toy industry bigger overall? Specifically, like, can you sort of say, or is it just kind of
certain,
think
for
that
certain
generally?
brands?
You know,
not
yeah,
for every
certain brands,
brand.
and I would say I actually would
Kid Robot.
say that
Robot
it
is
wasn't
a
that
small
different
part.
25 years ago.
Right.
The
They
number
were just
of
quieter.
they were quieter.
No
and
BronyCon.
there weren't the cons. It wasn't the kind of thing that you announce to people. I collect toys, but G.I. Joe and Star Wars have always had huge adult followings. It's just that people didn't necessarily put it on their, you know,
And now we have the internet.
on their Match.com.
All right, well, thanks, folks. Oh, my gosh.
That's a good place for it.
We're out of time, so we're going to stop there. Just quickly, are you showing at the fair? Where?
Yes, you can see Mario at the fair. Come by and try out the app. It's fun.
Where are you going to be? Do you know?
We'll probably be in the 3D printed area. I'm not sure exactly.
Showing at the fair?
We're going to be at the Disney main sponsor paddock thing, showing off a demo app.
Paddock?
I don't know what they call it.
What is
the
Pavilion?
The giant Disney pavilion showing off a Big Hero 6 app.
Okay. Anything at the fair?
No, but we will be on the internet. So go check out Super Awesome Me and Super Fan Art. I'd love to, you know, get as many makers, you know, to help us build those up.
And if you'd like to play with these, you can go to snow.sh and order a free developer kit. We'll send you 2 of them in the mail.
Snow.sh.
Snow.sh.
Snow. Right. And I'm at the fair all on my own for 2 days. All right, well, thanks, everybody. Thanks for coming. See you at the weekend.